Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz. This is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Sunday, April 21st, 2024. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Got my daily rundown MLB best bet as well as my MLB season pass. There's also a link in the description. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Sunday in Major League Baseball. First up, we see the Tampa Bay Rays taking on the New York Yankees. We're going to see Aaron Civale and Luis Gil as the projected starters. And we saw in Luis Gil's last start, he definitely had some control issues, that's for sure. 7 walks given up in those 5 innings of work. Now, he was able to get out of most of those jams. He only gave up 3 runs by the end of that start. Now, it ended up being a Yankees loss, but, it showed that Gil, was able to wiggle out of some trouble. 6 strikeouts still in those 5 innings. He's had 11 walks in the last 2 games combined. The control going forward is going to be a concern. However, this is actually not too shabby of a matchup for him. He's facing a Rays team that so far this year, bottom 5 in baseball in walk percentage against right-handed pitching. So, Gil, I think, actually matches up pretty well in this game. And on the other side, Aaron Civale, we know that the way to get to him is via the home run ball. He's given up at least 1 home run in each of his starts this year, including 2 in his last game. And now you're pitching at Yankee Stadium, very hitter-friendly ballpark. I think the Yankees, who have plenty of home run hitters on the roster, can get to Civale for a few runs. When it comes to the bullpens, while I don't love the Yankees bullpen in terms of the expected numbers, they are better than the Rays right now, that's for sure. The Rays bullpen, arguably the weakest in baseball to start the season. So give me the New York Yankees in this one on the money line. Next up, we see the Boston Red Sox taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. We're going to see Martin Perez for Pittsburgh, no official starter for the Red Sox. When you look at Martin Perez, his only start at PNC Park this season was one of his best starts of his career, honestly. It was 8 innings of 1-run baseball, 7 strikeouts, no walks, and no home runs given up. And, while his last start wasn't his best, he was still only 1 out shy of a quality start. So he's in pretty good form going into this game. And the Red Sox, so-so numbers against lefties to start the year. The OPS and isolated power, pretty solid, but the strikeout rate, just under 30%, is, rather steep. I think Perez pitches well against a shorthanded Red Sox team. And you know what? You got to give credit to this Red Sox team for playing as well as they have, despite all their injuries, both in the lineup with guys like Devers, O'Neill. Yoshida's been sitting last couple of days. And then in the pitching staff, of course, Lucas Giolito, Nick Pivetta in the rotation. Garrett Whitlock's a question mark right now. So the Red Sox, because of their injuries, they're going to have to go with some bullpen games and some spot starters for the time being. And while it's worked out okay so far, I do worry in a spot like this. I just don't think the Red Sox have enough here. So I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Pirates on the money line at PNC Park. Next up, we see the Chicago White Sox taking on the Philadelphia Phillies. Aaron Nola and Nick Nastrini are your projected starters. Nastrini pitched really well in his Major League debut against Kansas City. But the problem is, and it remains, this White Sox lineup just doesn't back up their starters, and it's the weakest lineup in baseball right now. In that game, it was still a Royals win and run line cover because he gave up 2 runs, and that was all they needed. 2-0 the final score. We've seen the White Sox, I mentioned the other day, they've only had a few games where they scored more than 5 runs. They've been shut out quite a few times this season, including the first game of this series. And Aaron Nola, after a really bad start to start the year, he has been very solid ever since. His last 3 games, all wins for the Phillies, and he's only given up 3 runs combined in those 3 starts, including 7 1/3 of 1-run baseball with 9 strikeouts in his last game against Colorado. The Phillies are giant favorites in this game, so there's just not going to be a lot of value in a spot like this. You're not going to find a lot of spots, when you're fading the White Sox where there is going to be great prices, but I got to go with Philadelphia in a lean here, laying the 1.5 runs. Next up, we see the Houston Astros taking on the Washington Nationals. Christian Javier and Mitchell Parker are your starters. Christian Javier's got that 1.54 ERA on paper. Looks great, but he's got less than 7 strikeouts per 9 this season, more than 4 walks per 9. His xFIP is right now 5.37. I see big-time regression concerns for Javier going forward against the Nationals team. It does a great job of limiting strikeouts, getting on base, good power numbers against righties. I think Javier's in trouble in this game. And I think Mitchell Parker, while, he's still, a younger pitcher that we don't have a lot of information on, he pitched really well in that last game against the Dodgers. He went at Dodger Stadium to, 5 innings, 2-run baseball, 4 strikeouts, no walks, in a Nationals outright victory as a big-time underdog in that game, 6-4 the final score. They covered the reverse run line. I like Washington in this game on the money line. May not be the most popular play, but I can't back Christian Javier and this Houston Astros team at this kind of price with how disappointing they've been. Next up, we see the Los Angeles Angels taking on the Cincinnati Reds. Jose Soriano and Frankie Montas are your starters. Jose Soriano's got some control issues. We saw 5 walks in that last game against Tampa Bay, but it was also the second straight start against Tampa Bay. We've mentioned how difficult that is for a starting pitcher, especially one with not a lot of MLB experience, but he's got pretty good strikeout stuff. He's got 15 Ks through 15 innings of work this year, and with Frankie Montas in the form that he's in, I mean, he's given up 8 earned runs in his last 7 innings of work, 2 home runs, 6 walks to go with it. To me, the value with Los Angeles in this game, both lineups are solid. I think Soriano honestly has more upside to his game on the mound, and while the Angels' bullpen isn't great, when you look at the expected numbers, these teams are pretty similar right now. So I'm going to side with Los Angeles in this game. We're getting a really good price with the road team, so give me the Halos on the money line. Next up, we see the Oakland Athletics taking on the Cleveland Guardians. We're going to see Ross Stripling and Tanner Bybee as the starters. Tanner Bybee hasn't always been sharp this season. He's got a sub-5 ERA, 4.82. But you know what? The Guardians win his games. We've seen they've won all 4 of his games, and 3 of those 4 wins were by more than 1 run. One of those was an extra innings win of 10-7. But still, the Guardians are finding a way to win. And even in Bybee's last start, it was a much better outing. 5 innings of 1-run baseball against the Red Sox. So with Ross Stripling on the other side, who's 0-4, both the A's are 0-4 in his games, but he's also taken all 4 losses himself. It's tough to get there with Oakland in this matchup. He's given up in his last 2 starts in 11 2/3 innings, 17 base hits and 9 earned runs, 5 walks to go with it. So I'm going to go with the Cleveland Guardians here. They already got to Stripling at the beginning of the season for 4 earned runs and 5 total runs in a 6-4 run line win and cover. I'm going to go with the Cleveland Guardians and lay the 1.5 runs. Next up, we see the Baltimore Orioles taking on the Kansas City Royals. Cole Irvin and Seth Lugo are your starters. Seth Lugo, he just finds a way to get innings for the Royals. It's not always pretty. He gets out of a lot of jams. And, when you look at the numbers on paper, 3-0 with that 1.05 ERA, I don't think he's pitching anywhere near as good as those numbers may suggest. I expect some regression going forward, but hey, he's getting through these jams, and one of the big parts of being a reliever like Lugo was for the majority of his career up until this point is sometimes you have to clean up the mess of the starting pitchers or the relievers before you, and you get out of jams yourself. So I think Lugo, he's got that experience. He's pitching well, and I got to take him in this spot because I think he's the much better starting pitcher. Cole Irvin on the other side, an ERA just below 7. You could say it was his best start of the season last time out against the Twins, but he only went 4 2/3 innings, 6 base hits, and 2 earned runs against one of the worst lineups in baseball. Now you're at Kauffman Stadium against one of the best home teams in the league and one of the more underrated offenses in the league. I know the Royals bullpen is not great, but like I said, Lugo has been able to give them 7, 6, 6 2/3, and 6 innings in his 4 starts this year. Give me the Kansas City Royals in this one on the money line. Next up, we see the Detroit Tigers taking on the Minnesota Twins. Casey Mize and Louis Varland are your starters. I like Louis Varland. I think eventually he's going to be a solid option in this Twins rotation. He's just not there yet, and I have to back the Tigers in this game just because of Varland's recent struggles. We've seen his last 10 innings of work, 18 base hits, and 10 earned runs, 12 total runs, 4 home runs to go with it. He's given up a lot of sharp contact, a lot of base runners and base hits, and you know what? He's faced a lot of tough lineups. The Brewers, the Dodgers, and the Orioles. You could argue 3 of the top 10 offenses against righties in baseball this year. But while it does get much easier against the Tigers, I still think Casey Mize, really impressive that last game against a really tough Rangers lineup. He gives a quality start for his team, and the Tigers are 3-0 in Mize's starts this year. He had 6 strikeouts in that game. That was a little bit of a concern for me, was Mize wasn't missing a lot of bats, but he was able to do so against a really strong lineup last time out. And now you're facing the Twins, who arguably, bottom 5 lineup against righties this year. So give me the Detroit Tigers in this one on the money line. You can take them in the first 5 if you don't trust the bullpen, but this Tigers bullpen's been excellent this year, so I'd say you take Tigers in the full game. Next up, we see the St. Louis Cardinals hosting the Milwaukee Brewers. We're going to see Colin Ray and Sonny Gray as the projected starters in this one. It's a small sample size, but Sonny Gray has been excellent for the Cardinals so far. 11 innings of work, no earned runs, no walks, 11 strikeouts, so right around a strikeout per inning, a sub-1 whip, obviously the 0 ERA, and 2 Cardinals victories by more than 1 run. He has been excellent, and it's going to be a tough matchup here. The Brewers have a very, very solid and underrated lineup against right-handed pitching, but Colin Ray on the other side, don't love his game. I don't love his form right now. We saw in that last game against the Orioles giving up those 2 home runs. And one of the worries, that last year we saw from, one of the problems with Sonny Gray was he wasn't getting the run support. And while the teams aren't scoring a ton of run, the Cardinals only scored 3 apiece in those first 2 games for Sonny Gray. I think the Cardinals get to Ray for a few runs early, and the bullpen holds on to the lead for the St. Louis Cardinals to win this game. So give me the Cardinals on the money line. Next up, we see the Miami Marlins taking on the Chicago Cubs. Edward Cabrera and Kyle Hendricks are your starters. Obviously both of these teams looking for their starting pitchers to go pretty deep in this ball game because their bullpens were taxed quite a bit in the doubleheader on Saturday. But for me, while I do think that Kyle Hendricks is a Wrigley Field starting pitcher, and I think eventually he's going to get back to those solid numbers pitching at Wrigley. We saw him pitch at Wrigley once this year, and it was 5 earned runs against the Dodgers. Now, the Cubs went on to win that game because it was an offensive, slugfest, basically, and they went, score for score in that one. But I don't know if that's going to be the case in this game facing Cabrera, who, pitched really well in his season debut. We know he's got a ton of talent. I mean, it's 6 innings of 10 strikeout baseball in that game against San Francisco. Now, the problem was the Marlins lost that game, so there's certainly an argument to make for backing Chicago just because the Marlins have been have been one of the weakest teams in baseball to start the year. Their bullpen's not been trustworthy. The offense has not been there consistently. So I understand if you want to go Chicago's way, but with Kyle Hendricks giving up 5 earned runs in each of his first 4 starts, including 14 in his last 2 games, I got to go with Miami in this one. If they don't win this game, they're not going to win too many the rest of the year. Next up, we see the Arizona Diamondbacks taking on the San Francisco Giants. Merrill Kelly and Jordan Hicks are your starters. The Giants at the beginning of the season were miserable against right-handed pitching, but in the last week or so, they are improving those numbers slightly. And against Merrill Kelly on the road, that's where you got to get him. Kelly's been excellent at Chase Field at home in his career, and last year especially, where in 93 2/3 innings last season at home, a 2.59 ERA for Kelly, but on the road in 84 innings, an ERA above 4, a much lower strikeout rate, a higher walk rate, and higher home runs per 9 as well. Jordan Hicks has been excellent for San Francisco. I like the Giants in this game. I'm going to take them on the money line. I think they get to Kelly for a few runs early, and it's going to be enough for a win. Next up, it's the New York Mets taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers. Adrian Hauser and James Paxton are your starters. I like the over in this game. Adrian Hauser's got that 4.7 ERA, but an even steeper 5.11 expected ERA and 5.57 xFIP. He's not missing a lot of bats and has actually given up more walks than he's earned strikeouts this year, which is automatically a red flag for me. Now you're facing the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium. I think he's in trouble. But also James Paxton, we saw him walk 8 batters in his last game. This is actually a really solid Mets lineup against left-handed pitching. And I think they get to Paxton. I mean, they're number 4 right now in team OPS against lefties. Their isolated power numbers are solid. The strikeout rate is very, very low. So for Paxton, who I also have regression concerns for, and the Dodgers bullpen also not having the best start to the season, I like the over in this Mets-Dodgers ballgame. Next up, we see the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the San Diego Padres. Chris Bassett and Joe Musgrove are your starters. I would say Joe Musgrove's improved since the beginning of the season. He certainly has a ways to go. His last game wasn't the sharpest against Milwaukee, but it was also against a really tough Brewers lineup against righties, and it was on the road. The Padres still went on to win the game, and it was still a quality start for Musgrove in the end. So now back at home, where I would say Musgrove's a lot better at Petco Park, I'm willing to back Musgrove and the Padres in this game because Chris Bassett has just not been great on the road. We saw it in the last year, and we saw it so far this year. I mean, his first 2 road games, he gave up 8 earned runs combined in 9 1/3 against the Astros and Rays, and an 8-2 and 8-0 loss. And then at home, he was much better. He gave up 2 earned runs combined against the Mariners and Yankees, but even in that Yankees game, I thought he was laboring through some of those innings. I watched that start. It was fine, but he gave us some sharp contact, and I worry about him on the road now against San Diego. On the road, Bassett just hasn't been able to figure it out. So I'm going to go with the San Diego Padres on the money line in this one. Next up, we see the Texas Rangers taking on the Atlanta Braves. Michael Lorenzen and Darius Vines are the starters for this one. Your Sunday Night Baseball contest on ESPN is going to be the final game for the Sunday card. I think both of these starting pitchers have some, regression concerns after their first few games of the season. Vines against the Astros only went 4 2/3 innings. He had 3 walks given up. He had the 4 strikeouts, but, I do think that the Rangers should be able to get to him for a few runs, but I also think the Braves get to Lorenzen. The Braves have great numbers against righties, and Lorenzen, while he had a shutout in his first 5 innings against the Tigers, he also had 5 walks given up. We know the control is always a concern for Michael Lorenzen. I don't love his matchup here, and to me, if it comes down to the bullpens and the lineups, I got to give the advantage to Atlanta right now. So give me the Braves in this one on the money line. And that's it. Those are the games for Sunday in Major League Baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Romanelli. Good luck.